I remember when developers and publishers used to be the household names for video game fanatics. Now you're the names of my household cleaning products. Just the other day I was wiping down my windshield with a bottle of Capcom. And my commode with Konami. Residentvania 5, Sonata of useless AI companions. How did Spencer coax some contractor to have another mansion built exactly the same way in exactly the same kind of region with exactly the same traps and items? Doors, underground passageways, and the whole skadoodle needs to be built according to the territory's building code with safety inspectors in full pursuit. In the first game, everything was on the down low and hush-hush was a code of conduct. Even the original designer met his end prior to the 1998 mansion incident because Spencer was tying up loose ends, but here, he's a wanted man from all over the world. The fact that he can pull this off without alerting any kind of investigation leading to the involvement of the proper authorities followed by the BSAA leads me to believe that this whole DLC is an enormous nostalgia trip. Emphasis on the trip.
Expect the unexpected.
That's actually impossible. Also, no amount of preparations can prepare you for Godzilla, since I'm not expecting him to mosey on down here plasma breath and all. This is a prime example of what Capcom developers believe horror is now.
Roger that. We knew this mission wouldn't be a cakewalk.
And we sent only you two because it provides more challenge for you and less work for our other agents since their forte lies in traffic coordination. Rehashing a setting in a classic game? Good. Reuse the same concepts that made the series amazing, but be sure to implement those concepts in trivial ways. No one. It's been burning since the world's been turning. The cow has died at this point, yet Capcom continues to milk it. Jill can fit through these bars, but having a woman anywhere near what may share resemblance to a stripping pole will enrage all the feminists.
Smell.
Don't know, but I hope we don't run into whatever's making it.
There are plenty of odors courtesy of decomposing corpses, sewer water, and dried blood that Chris must have the smelling capabilities of a bloodhound to distinguish between them. Chris and Jill survived this fall. Fitting to black often implies that a character blacked out, and Chris was face down in the water prior to awakening. 2 + 2, people.
I'm fine, but I lost most of my gear.
How? Did they fall into a pocket dimension on the way down? Money! Items! Action! I'm bored! The scene where Chris and Jill are thrashed is awesome, but the amount of fractured bones, internal bleeding, massive bruising, and possible deaths pooled with the amount of KOs that should have occurred in this scene will initiate a... Hey Chris, aren't you getting a little too trigger happy? I mean, you didn't know that Wesker had powers to dodge bullets. Dude could have had a dozen holes in him at this point. Apparently Wesker is a conduit now. Also, Neo. I would say discount Neo, but he does a damn good job. Why not remove a sin? Jill and Wesker obviously survived, since this DLC was released after the main game. The game expects you to believe that Wesker survived from falling off a cliff and somehow managed to save Jill in the process, which is a BS explanation developers want you to swallow through your butt crack.
Resident Evil 5.
Black Man Genocide Emulator. Also, audio descriptions brought to you by Capcom since 1996. I'm going to go ahead and slap on 20 sins for all the stereotyping in this game, since in the eyes of some Dick Jones, a stereotype is a compound word, but so is brain dead and upstart. I hope you weren't naive enough to believe this is a horror game preceding its release, since it takes place in broad daylight. Then again, sunburn is pretty scary. When the trailer for this game came out, my friend noticed that a giant crow was driving a Jeep, and that pretty much sums up how seriously I take this game now.
A new era of bioterrorism descended upon vulnerable countries, shifting the balance of power throughout the region.
Narration and exposition that I disregard downright because convoluted story. Well, that and the fact that by the time I understand the story, they'll probably be able to use my body as fossil fuels. Store names and poster boards in English, because a nation without English is a nation without order. No amount of fan service will get me to forget the forgettable personality of this forgettable character. Fan service is not an excelling quality of the game, it's just a distraction.
Welcome to Africa.
With all the referencing of overthrown governments and terrorist organizations, Sheva uses a vague location and says Africa. But we know this is quite possibly Nigeria since Abuja is the capital city of Nigeria. Apparently outright stereotyping is malignant, but implied stereotyping is a-okay.
More and more I find myself wondering if it's all worth fighting for.
See, this self-assessment would have made more sense if he was wondering whether he was fighting for the right cause rather than fighting at all. If you stopped fighting the bad guys will hurt more people. It's pretty straightforward. Special agents lose sight of civilians by the dozens. Both Chris and Sheva suit up and forget the Kevlar, because when you have main character protection, bullets will always find their way around you.
You should do what you came here to do and go home.
Yeah, they really roll out the red carpet for us Americans.
Oh, I get it. It's because you're from the only country that matters. That's uncomfortably vain and racist. Chris and Sheva watch this happen, then decide to do something about it. These 2 Maroons infect this guy, then take off instead of attacking, because a white guy on steroids is more intimidating than 3 black guys with a starfish in their mouths.
What the hell just happened?
Snoop Dogg just died of meth poisoning.
Didn't move like any zombies I've ever seen.
You saw him ingest a parasite. Are you blind?
Up on Daddy!
This guy has the best plot-convenient eyesight in the whole Resident Evil series. How the hell did he see Chris and Sheva from this distance and with a considerable amount of window glare? Guess we know where Chris's eyesight transmigrated to. The only white woman in Africa, just to avoid the racism. Good job, Capcom. 80% of this game is an exemplified rehash of ideas from Resident Evil 4. I should take 80% of that game's sins and put them here, then add an extra 5 for making a discernible ripoff. He's screaming because Capcom forced him to be a part of this game. You had one job, Sheva. Worst partner ever.
What the hell is that?
A naked acrobat eating a bowl of pasta.
What was that thing?
A hamster running on a rotary telephone. The questions may be rhetorical, but the sins are not.
Our transportation has been taken out too.
What transportation? You mean the chopper? Or the Humvee that Chris arrived in at the beginning of the game? Because other than those two vehicles, you've been walking everywhere. Or are you requesting a new set of legs?
Ever get the feeling you're expendable?
Why is this such a surprise? I mean, you guys are agents of the BSAA. You combat, prevent, and exterminate bioterrorism. There's a distinct possibility that you could end up dead. Truth is, if human life was given more value, there'd be far less casualties in the world today. Still, this is a sin, since you are the ones that chose this profession. You should know of the consequences. This Plagas dude went to the driving school of the fast and injurious. Even graffiti is in English, the deuce? Look, I'm totally on board with the heads exploding in a Resident Evil game. I really am. But I am not okay with punching and kicking acting like a thermite bomb at impact. What's next? A detonating wet rag? Here's Capcom's checklist of a few things that are predetermined necessity for Resident Evil games. Chainsaws? Check. Crows without any context? Check. Incoherent action scenes? Check. This entire action sequence must be dinged a few times. Also, discount road rash. And then the motorcycle struck Chris and Sheva, causing them to require intense physical therapy, thus ending the game. But developers frustrate me by crushing my lamented dreams.
Thanks, Josh. I owe you one.
Unlike the name Sheva that has actual origins to the region, Chris comes across the only BSAA member with a name that can be easily pronounced, since it's irrefutable that he could have a possible African name.
Jill.
Should have saved this reveal for the battle with Wesker rather than bait it now, but game has nothing going for it to keep the player from ignoring the story.
This picture, it's...
Chris plays the pronoun game, kind of like how the plot plays the hide-and-seek game.
Breathe! Oh shit!
So you must be Irving.
Wow, perceptive, aren't ya?
Resident Evil 5 inspires comedic Resident Evil movies, since you'll be giggling at the over-the-top ostentatious plot characters and action sequences, then demand your money back after the theater proceedings.
So you must be Irving.
Wow, perceptive, aren't ya?
Why reveal yourself? The building they're in is the actual deal location, so you could parade around as anyone. He could have said his name was Patrick Starr, and they would have no way to verify that.
You think this is a joke?
I thought this whole game was a joke.
The weapon!
Or, how about you drop yours?
And no shots were fired, even though this is far from a stalemate. Jill would have been situated on the roof of the building, which primarily serves as an ideal lookout point, but doesn't alert Irving that BSAA members are ambushing him.
Nice entrance. Either you've never heard of a door, or you just like pulling glass out of your shorts.
Chris and Sheva sit there and do nothing for the second time. Seriously? If they really got away, then at least make it look like they did. There's only so far you can get on foot in 10 seconds, but logic is unapparent to our anacephalic agents. Earlier, Josh says,
We'll follow after taking care of business here.
so does he want them to go back through the mine to the train station? Josh is profoundly playing the pronoun game, but Chris and Sheva are just psychic enough to know where here is. Good luck transporting anything past this chasm, as this dirt road is a dead end. There's not even a bridge here. The rock blasting contractors didn't give a damn about the actual road and constructed a trail for mountain climbers and parkour enthusiasts.
It's too heavy for you. Let me give you a hand.
Well, if it was a boulder, I'm sure it wouldn't be an issue. 3 questions, Capcom. What, why, and how? The answer to all 3 is screw you. Honestly, I would have preferred this BOW to attack from a cave in the mountainside. I mean, I would have sent it even then since convenient boss timing, but this is gargantuan loads of BS. Resident Evil 5 has procured its placement in the list of C-class action movies with shaky cameras, making climactic scenes too disorienting to follow. I'm getting real tempted to give this game 500 cents and call it a day.
Chris! Sheva!
The plot is waiting.
Heard about Irving. Tough break.
Yes, but there will be other opportunities.
Not if you keep screwing up like you did 15 minutes ago. Resident Evil 5 turns into Virtual Cop for the financially stable.
Data refers to the infected as Majini.
In Swahili, a language native to Eastern Africa, Majini means wicked people. Need I say more? Earlier, Sheva said,
Don't let happen, do they?
insinuating that these motorcycle riding Molotov throwers are trailing them. But then during the actual gameplay, all enemies come from the front of the Jeep. This ramp has just enough slope to have the truck hilariously crash into the other side of the bridge, but game continues to destroy my fantasies.
What could have done this?
Flying pink elephants. If you're going to continue the trend, so am I. El Gigante is maybe 30 to 40 feet tall, meaning it would have been impossible for Chris and Sheva to avoid visual contact. I guess you're still blind as ever, eh, Chris? Also, this militia vehicle is catapulted from the right side of huge jacked man, but in the following shots, Nadesu steps on this BSAA waffle from the opposite side. This game should be renamed to The Blind Ones from Africa. And Desu could have killed Chris and Sheva in this scene, but spends precious seconds auditioning for the Metro Goldwyn Mayer logo. Is there any reason he can't just toss the Jeep Chris and Sheva are in right now? I mean, he did that with the other three.
Chris, look around. We should both get the hell out of here.
Wait, they could have just walked away whenever they wanted? Then why'd they make such a big deal about it in Kijuju?
I can't just turn my back and walk away.
Sure about this? A second ago, you were ready to cut and run.
Whoa, Chris, you'd be amazing at sinning this game. A few more lines like that, and I might stop hating your character.
There are no more orders from here on in. It's just us.
So basically, they gave a great big screw you to HQ and then went on with their own agendas. This will have no repercussions in future Resident Evil games. Chris and Sheva went to the android factory of 2B and 9S'ing because since when do human beings require sleep?
What about you? Why'd you join the BSAA?
Skip. The Berlin Wall would have been very effective against the BSAA forces. Josh can identify Sheva and Chris as clear as day from this angle, but developers feel the need to make unnecessary drama as flamboyant as possible.
How did you get here?
We were at the port when we were attacked. And then, well, I ended up here.
Game doesn't even care about its own logic at this point.
We've got unfinished business.
The hard drive containing data on the BOW experiment had a picture inside.
This is Chris's what the hell Sheva look. This floor can be easily reached by a simple piggybacking maneuver, but that is much harder than using the elevator. And in future Resident Evil games, an escalator will be necessary to pass through a window this high because lifting your legs to waist level is tear-jerkingly stressful. Most elevators require a simple key or card key to access restricted floors, but Josh needed to type out an entire essay to access this one. And then they make it to another security system that requires you to type out your entire life story before entry.
You two are just in time for the fireworks show.
The way this guy talks makes me wonder if Capcom ever wanted fans to take this game seriously. I'm not going to say anything anymore. I'm just going to double the amount of sins I gave the sort of scene previously every time Chris and Sheva stood around with a dumbfounded look on their faces when they could have prevented the situation in the first place.
What happened to Irving?
They stood there gawking while Irving sailed away flipping the bird. That's what happened. These guys make stormtroopers look like snipers. Also, Chris miraculously recovers from his blindness.
But not anymore.
Don't do it!
Discount Dr. Octopus. Discount Delago. Discount Dead Space Tentacles. With the amount of discounts in game should have been sold for $5.
Bastard.
You were just about to shoot him.
I will call HQ and try to get the withdrawal order rescinded.
There was no withdrawal order. Last direct contact you had with HQ was...
High probability that Irving is on his way to an oil field in the marshlands. We're rejoining Delta Team and heading there now.
Understood.
After that Denesu hogwash, Chris says,
There are no more orders from here on in. It's just us.
Are you making up BS now?
So, if there is a connection, what does that mean for Africa?
Not sure. But if we keep going, we're bound to find out.
If I keep looking for sins, I'm bound to get more pissed off.
I didn't know you can move so fast.
Don't be too upset. I don't know any women that can run fast in high heels either. Centuries-old underground city has elevators and two-man rule control mechanisms. There are so many things wrong with this one scene that I can make a mini sins clip about it. This hairstyle.
And now Ouroboros is complete.
Her voice acting is terrible, prefer to have Ashley. Placing Excella beside an amazing antagonist like Wesker compels the player to overlook her character even more, providing fan service for a character that has no other redeeming qualities, turning said character into a seductress hammering the final nail in the coffin, failing to seduce Wesker, thus compelling me to hit my head against a wall causing amnesia.
God, please, no!
Giving this game the benefit of the doubt, since using a magnifying glass in sunlight is the same abstract idea. This is just on a larger scale. But to control the direction, the lens needs to be adjusted, so this is still a duffel bag of guano. Another easily scalable wall reduced to a retrieve and secure jigsaw game because Chris and Sheva were big fans of the Crystal Maze show. Why use frivolous traps like spiked floors, poison darts, and tripwire when we have maze-like puzzles protected by ancient African laser beams? Developers waste 15 to 30 of adequate gameplay minutes following scenes like this, in case you forgot that Resident Evil is supposed to be a horror game, even though this is not a horror game. Another BOW thrown in the toilet of bubble toil and trouble, since Capcom feels nostalgia will reimburse you for $60 of work-related struggle. This is the essence of Kardashian giving Odom the boot in a nutshell. Chris's blindness has made a prodigal return, which is so far the greatest plot twist of the game. Oh look, it's what's her face? Yeah, that's it.
Why? As if I need to explain myself to you.
Good call. 90% of this game's fanbase will remember you as Boobs Lady anyway.
Although, weren't you two given orders to retreat?
No. No, they weren't.
Where is Jill?
Jill? Even if I did know, you think I would tell you?
Cut the crap. Tell me where she is.
This continues for some time. Resident Evil 5 Modern Warfare.
Clean handle, Robert. I'm looking forward to it.
Albert.
Scriptwriter said, story is trash anyway, so let's let the most convenient story writing known to man provide exposition. Honestly, I've enjoyed more articulate plot development from children's novels.
What manner of beast is that?
It's a fluffy Persian kitten. Give it a hug.
Well, glad you could make it. Up here, you two.
What's her face plays the pronoun game, so Chris and Sheva must stare up at the ceiling like Chicken Little.
You've spent so long trying to track down Ouroboros.
Actually, Chris was looking for Jill, but Ouroboros and Jill are spelled the same way, but pronounced differently. A common mistake.
Damn it, where's Jill?
Jill? Maybe I'll tell you. Maybe I won't.
Maybe this voice acting is dreadful, or maybe... Nope, it's dreadful. There's that main character protection Kevlar working perfectly as always. That's a solid KO and a few trips to the dentist. Also, Wesker decided to dress Jill in this erotic attire for no adequately explored reason. And don't bother telling me this is combat gear because high heels. Also, discount Samus.
We'll never win like this. Time to change tactics.
We should hide!
There's no point in hiding.
Go. Wesker, stop.
If you're wondering about Jill, she's just on her coffee break.
Still resisting at such an advanced stage.
Jill resisting Plagas control that no one else has been able to do because reasons.
What's that on her chest?
We have to get it off her.
That external device could be connected to our central nervous system, as most Plagas are, and could kill her when removed, but fans will march to Capcom's headquarters with their torches and pitchforks and demand reparations for killing off their fictional sweetheart.
Don't do this, Jill! I don't want to hurt you! Jill, what are you doing? Stop this! Jill, answer me!
Instead of encouraging Jill to do her best to resist the Plagas, Chris continues to tell her to control herself, like she's throwing dishes at him for cheating on her.
I can't just leave you here.
You have to.
Is there any reason they can't escort her outside to safety?
You need to stop him. You're the only one who can.
Well, he is the only one that can make it look dramatic.
Don't you trust your partner?
Jill used confusion. Chris became confused. He hurt himself in his confusion. Capcom continues to tease a Chris and Jill ship, even though we know Chris is married to the mission.
Hey, can you hear me? Are you all right?
And suddenly, there was Josh. Josh completely drops his guard when approaching Jill, since skin-tight, leather-clad blonde women are always damsels in distress instead of the 99% of parasite-infected killers.
Chris?
Yeah, the black one.
I got a helicopter waiting and I'm going after Sheva.
You got room for one more?
Because co-op.
There's always room for a beautiful lady.
I didn't realize flirting was part of the job description.
I bet you say that to all the girls.
Just the pretty ones.
Pretty meaning white, blonde, and exposed.
I'm here for you if you need to talk to Riley and Mac. For you, Valentine.
This whole DLC might as well be one massively failed pickup line. Unnecessary tension and drama because we played the main game and would therefore know how it ends.
Chris?
This guy is still brooding? He was brooding at the intro after losing Jill, then brooding when trying to find her, and now he's brooding because he left her. No wonder they used him as Batman in Arkham Origins. Large cage bars seem to be a female character's Achilles heel.
Damn it!
Is there any reason you can't follow her? I mean, it's possible that the door's locked, but the locking mechanisms are controlled from the bridge, and Wesker is alerted later of Chris and Sheva's arrival. I'm calling BS on this scene here.
She's tough. I'll give her that much.
Actually, tough implies inner or outer strength. I think the word you're looking for is guts. Great, now I'm doing it with this series. 12 degrees what? Celsius? Fahrenheit? Kelvin?
The right to be a god. You. Arrogant even until the end. Only one truly capable of being a god deserves that right.
This rant goes on until his death. Wesker went to the Son of Sparta school of talking to himself.
6 billion cries of agony will burn a new balance.
Sorry, Wesker, but not on my watch!
I guess Chris forgot that only Wesker has the microphone.
Albert! You said we change these words together!
Look, let me make it clear for all of you. Only Wesker has the microphone. This is not a phone call.
Soon, even you will understand, Chris. One glimpse of my new world, and it will all make perfect sense. Unfortunately, it's too late for you. You will not live to see the dawn.
Thus invalidating my previous statement, making this monologue entirely pointless.
Albert!
Ugh, what the hell am I watching? Satellite laser convenience and will inconveniently never be used again. This ship should be sinking after the few holes the laser has put in it.
Wait.
How nice that the plot was rolling via monitor on the bridge, and maybe next time they'll put it on a nice plasma screen in the viewing vicinity of reclining couches. Wesker could have taken off at this point, but decides to do whatever this is.
Excella said that the amount administered has to be precise. So if he injects too much, it should act like a poison.
And I couldn't have told you this earlier, especially after watching you get your butt handed to you by Wesker twice now.
Chris, this is it.
How convenient of Sheva to pick up the one vial necessary to defeat Wesker among hundreds in the research area, and manage to keep it in one piece after all the parkouring.
Bomber equipped with missiles. He can't fly around in that without getting shot down. Oh, God.
Exactly. The plane can't get shot down. If it does, it'll initiate a biohazard.
It's not just a bomber, it's a stealth bomber. They are highly undetectable by radar, visible light, and infrared vision. Wesker is obviously using the missiles to specifically target certain regions to effectively spread Ouroboros throughout the world. Of course, it will initiate a biohazard if the plane is shot down, but Wesker's plan will fail. Why, Chris? This is one of those hold this for a minute moments that makes you look like a complete dunce.
If we take advantage of the duck, we might actually hit him.
Yeah, it's not like you can turn the lights back on, right? But then again, this is why you don't wear sunglasses at night. Wesker's strength level changes so frequently in this game that he might as well be a heartbeat monitor. It's surprising that Chris has any teeth left at all at this point.
The entire world will be infected.
Shoot him! You deserve everything that happens to you after this stupidity. Ouroboros can give you any power you need at a moment's notice. Missile explosions and lava don't immediately disintegrate Wesker, but a bloody machete can pierce him. Serum goes flying in this scene, but somehow Chris magically has it here. Wesker survives this. Chris and Sheva survive this. There are many factors that contribute to how close you can be to lava, such as temperature, direction of airflow, and toxic fumes, among other things. Generally speaking, minimum distance can range from anywhere between 2 to 10 meters before you start to closely resemble charcoal. Chris and Sheva should have died numerous times in this volcano, so you get 5 sins for that. Let's talk about Wesker's plan for a second. He wants to infect everyone with Ouroboros, causing only a select few of the populace to probably bond with the virus and evolve. Ultimately, everyone else will turn into these mutated worm monsters. Now what? You have an entire world without order and your plan is to rebuild? I mean, first you, as the minority, would have to eliminate all the worm people, unless you're suggesting that everything infected with a virus will coincide. Then try to establish order under your rule, which might be extremely difficult if no one agrees with you. Not to mention the catastrophic effects on the environment, which would affect agriculture, sources of water, and possibly air. Making drastic changes to the ecological system and then assuming everything will function in harmony is extremely presumptuous. And you neglected to account for the constantly injecting yourself with a serum that stabilizes the virus, which you have a limited supply of before you need to cultivate more. That requires scientists, facilities, and time. I can say without a doubt that if this plan goes through, you're screwed.
Just getting started.
scene here is a promotion for a new weed by the developers, because there's no drug in this planet that can get you so high to come up with a scene like this. Also, too much hook, not enough RAM. 8 out of 10 for quick thinking, but a 1 out of 10 for execution, Chris. Ah, the orange juice hurts. Rocket blasts barely stunned him in their second encounter, and now 2 rockets killed him.
It's over.
Actually, you still have a catastrophe to work through before you reach par via reboot. And I hear someone stole your name and said reboot, or you went through intensive plastic surgery and steroid abstinence.
More and more, I find myself wondering if it's all worth fighting for. For a future without fear?
After Operation Raccoon City, I was very fearful for the franchise, so where were you on that one, doucheness?
Yeah, it's worth it.
A question that took me 10 seconds to answer takes Chris an entire mission to answer, flying into the sunset cliché. And it's at this point Resident Evil 6 was greenlit and story writers had this conversation. Damn, we shouldn't have killed Wesker. Now what do we do for Resident Evil 6? Screw it, let's put anything we can think of for previous Resident Evil games and make it flashy. Sounds good. And you saw the result.
Not on my watch!
How nice that the plot was rolling via monitor on the bridge, and maybe next time they'll put it on a nice plasma screen in the viewing vicinity of reclining couches. And I choked in home stretch.